Hi, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple minutes to let everyone join, and then we'll get started. Welcome, everyone. We're ready to get started. Thank you all for coming. I'm Alexander, the moderator for today's webinar. I'm also a member of Team 5015, and I'm very excited to welcome you to ATAA's Ask Me Anything event. We are really happy so many of you came out for this event. This AMA, or Ask Me Anything, is an opportunity to hear firsthand from a slate of panelists from our two FRC teams about their experience being a part of ATAA and FIRST Robotics. We will start with a presentation from each of our panelists, and they will answer all of your questions at the end of the presentations. If you're viewing the webinar on Zoom, you'll notice that there's a little Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. That'll just allow you to send us questions. And if you want to direct your question to a specific panelist, please make note of that. But before we get started, I'd like to invite one of ATAA's board members, Kash Wong, to give us an overview of ATAA and FIRST Robotics.
Thanks, Alex. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining our AMA. My name is Cash, and I am the Vice President of ATAA Robotics. We are a nonprofit organization that promotes STEM through FIRST robotics programs. And for the upcoming season, we're going to have a total of 6 teams that will be competing in FIRST. We will have 2 FRC teams, 4334 ATA and 5015 SWAT bots. We also have 3 FTC teams, 10015 SWAT bots red, 16595 SWAT bots black, and 16596 ATA. And I'm super excited that our newest team for this upcoming year is going to be an FLL team. And this is going to be their inaugural year. And their team number is, it's a long one, 202000322, with a name yet to be determined. And I originally come from the FLL side of FIRST, so it's very near and dear to me that we're going to be launching an FLL team. Our job at ATA Robotics is really to do the work behind the scenes to make sure teams, mentors, and especially the kids have what they need to be successful. All of our board members, our mentors, and everyone that supports the organization are volunteers. And our mission is to give these amazing kids an outlet for their skills, creativity, and drive. And I have to say that the kids have certainly delivered. Both our FRC teams are amazing and competitive every year. And just last year, 5015 made it to the Worlds in Houston and competed as a captain in their Newton Division final. So that was awesome. And then last year was also the inaugural year for 2 of our 3 FTC teams, and all 3 teams made it to the regional finals in Edmonton, with 10015 SWAT bots red getting the invite to the Worlds. And we couldn't have done any of this without the volunteers and especially our sponsors. Robotics at these levels are a very expensive sport, and without them, it would be very difficult to deliver the kinds of programs that we do for the kids. Our goal at ATA Robotics is to have amazing kids that will move on from our programs to do amazing things for the world. And if you're interested in joining any of our programs as a team member or as a sponsor, or just as a volunteer, please come visit our website at ataarobotics.ca and contact us, and we'd be happy to have a chat with you. Thank you, Alex. Back to you.
Thanks, Cash. As Cash mentioned, ATAA has teams spanning all 3 levels of FIRST, and today we have a panelist of 5 members from our 2 FRC teams, 4334 and 5015, who are happy to talk about their experiences and answer any questions you may have. The members of our panel today are Sudhi Garg, Connor Ciccone, Nate Wong, Kul Kornak, and Sanjay Jayaram. Our first panelist is Sudhi Garg. Sudhi is a grade 10 student who loves robotics. This was her first year on Team 4334, and she's very happy to have been able to work firsthand on the robot Whaleboy. Over to you, Sudhi.
All right, well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming. As Alex mentioned, my name is Sudhi. I was a rookie on the FRC team 4334 this season. It was my first time ever being on a robotics team, and I'm really happy to say it was a really incredible and fun journey, although it was cut short because of COVID. Now, before talking about my experience on the team, I really wanted to get into what I had thought of robotics initially and how that changed over time. So before joining the team 4334, I'd always been kind of interested in robotics. I never really got into it though. I enjoyed reading about robotics. I enjoyed watching technologies develop, videos on YouTube, but never really had the chance to try something on my own because, as a lot of people know, robotics is a field that can be kind of expensive to experiment with. So like me, a lot of people never really get the chance to dive into it as much as they want to. Now, this was also my first year of high school when joining robotics, which was a lot of fun. So I was really looking into getting involved with something that I was passionate about and I could keep with for years, and something that provides me with opportunities for the future. So soon enough at school, club day rolled along. I don't know if you guys have club day at your school, but basically a lot of clubs come to the gym to try to get you to join. And the very first thing I see when I enter the gym is a robot that is being remote controlled and was tossing students' balls. Now, as I mentioned, I had only seen robots on TV and read about them before, so my mind was absolutely blown. I was so impressed with everything. And immediately I signed up for this robotics team. I was super interested in what was going on, even if I had no clue what was going on behind it. So before I knew it, I had signed up for join robotics team. I went to their open house. I got to see the build space, which was new this year. And with my very little experience, I was now on a full-fledged competitive robotics team, absolutely terrified of everything. So I remember my first day of going to the build space, I was so nervous to join. Everything was super new to me. The competition, the workspace, the people. I had never seen anything like it before, and quite frankly, I was really intimidated. I was also kind of worried about being the only girl there because I wasn't oblivious to the fact that the ratio between girls and guys on robotics teams are often quite unequal. So me coming into this first day, I was absolutely terrified, but immediately my worries disappeared. Everyone I met was incredibly kind and supportive. I met two of the rookie girls who I got close to immediately, and everyone else on the team, the mentors included, made sure I felt like happy and comfortable in my space. Throughout the team, I explored a lot of different sub-teams, such as mechanical, electrical, programming, and I really just tried my best to help out as much as I could. By the end of the season, I learned so many skills I honestly didn't even know existed. Now, so when people think of robotics, I think they think a lot about the technical aspects of it. So the building of the robot, the programming, the strategy behind it. I think they just imagine that we're all like working in a garage a lot of the time, which I mean, I'm pretty sure it's to be true, but I think one thing I'd really like to reiterate is that robotics is a lot more than the competition itself. It's really about building people and like being a team who share the same interests as you and working together to achieve something really incredible. You meet a lot of new people and there's something to learn from every single one of them. The connections you make with others and the interpersonal skills you learn are something you'll carry on for the rest of your career, which is something a lot of schools don't reiterate because no matter how talented you are at something, until you learn to work with people, you're really not going to be successful at it. Another thing is that robotics really is for everyone. As a team member, you don't have to know how to like work on machines or program online. There's so many other ways you can contribute. I know people who like really enjoy working on strategy for games and helping understand how it works. I know others who enjoy fundraising or just being with others on the team and PR. There really is something for everyone, whether they finding a way to fit in. The people you meet are so kind, the mentors are incredible, and you learn so much. Not to mention all the opportunities that open up through FRC. The competitions are incredible. I haven't been to one yet, but I'm incredibly excited to go. So my robotics journey, although has been cut short this season, but I really hope to continue with FRC, and I'm really excited to see where it will take me in the future. If you guys have any questions for me, please leave them below, but that is all I have. Oh no.
Thanks, Judy. Our next panelist is Connor Ciccone. Connor is an alumni of 4334 and has held roles of pit boss, mechanical lead, and team captain. He continues to support the team as an alumni tech specialist.
Hi, everyone. I'm Connor Ciccone, and as Alex mentioned, I am a alumni of Team 454 just this season. 2020 was my senior year. So obviously this season has been very different from many others with COVID striking right in the middle of it. So we only did get to compete once, but I think this year was by far one of our best. It was one of the most fun that we've had in terms of chaos, but also strange successes and other things, and especially being in our new space, that was absolutely amazing. It's a really, really nice space compared to what we've had before, and we get to use it all year round, barring COVID, and that is something that we haven't had before, so that's really nice. We can do a lot of off-season training. So getting into some of the history with the team was started in 2012. by one Alex Rodriguez. So Alex is currently, if you keep an eye on the tech world, and especially on self-driving vehicles, he currently runs and owns a startup in Silicon Valley building self-driving semi-trucks. So ATAA's motto of "We build people" very much is true. There have been some really amazing things that our alumni have gone on to do, working in helicopter-borne LiDAR, self-driving vehicles, starting their own businesses. Robotics is really the gateway to quite an amazing industry with mechatronics or even just into engineering. Most of our students do go into post-secondary to pursue various forms of engineering, mechanical, computer sciences, and things like that. And but most of all, above building robots and everything you learn, there is an amazing community to be had in FIRST. The friends that you make are lifelong friends. I've made many through the team alone, just within our local area, but even other provinces and other countries. We have teams that show up at competitions from Turkey, from Mexico. They're all over the world, and you get to meet some really amazing and interesting people. So yeah, my experience in the team overall, as much as we haven't been able to get to Worlds ourselves over the past few years, we've had quite a few hiccups here and there that have thrown the wrench into things. But overall, we have done quite well for the challenges that we have been put into. And just the experience of being on the team, people that you meet, and the amount of knowledge that you gain is more than worth it, regardless of whether you win or not. So yeah, if you have any questions pertaining to mechanical or to what happens after you graduate the team, because FIRST doesn't really stop once you graduate. You can keep doing it for decades if you really want to. Then feel free to direct those questions towards me.
Thank you, Connor. The next panelist is Nate Wong. Nathan Wong is a grade 11 student at Sir Winston Churchill High School and a member of Team 5015 SWATBOTS for 2 years. He has been with FIRST for 6 years and it has greatly shaped his post-secondary into mechanical and computer engineering careers.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nathan Wong, and I am a grade 11 student who currently attends Sir Winston Churchill High School. 2021 will be my 3rd season with SWATBOTS and my 6th or 7th year involved with FIRST. I started out in the FIRST LEGO League, the junior section of FIRST, which works with pre-built LEGO EV3 parts, and moved to SWATBOTS in hopes of working with robotics on a larger scale. Being involved in robotics and engineering programs for all these years has ultimately shaped my career path and what post-secondary courses I'm considering. As a kid, I had always considered becoming a lawyer or maybe even a chef, but after seeing how fabrication processes and robotics works, I'm now considering working in the field of mechanical or computer engineering. After completing only 1 year of robotics, I was drawn to the planning, problem solving, blueprinting, and building. The aspect that has struck out to me the most, however, is crafting new ideas on how to solve problems and then creating them as an actual physical tool to overcome the challenges. SWATBOTS has greatly helped me in making future career choices, developing friendships, and creating connections inside of the robotics industry. Anywhere from sponsorship events to the utilization of industry-grade programs, I feel that SWATBOTS helps me gain experience for future life skills that I may need to use. Being on SWAT overall is a very enjoyable experience with lots of laughter, hard work, and growth along the way.
Thank you, Nathan. So our next panelist is Kool Kornak. Kool is an alumni of Team 4334 and a recent graduate of Bishop Carroll High School. He was formerly the programming and PR lead and has spent more than 700 plus hours with the team.
Thanks, Alex. So yeah, like Alex said, hi, I'm Kool. And yeah, I've been part of ATA since 2018. It's been a blast on how long I've been part of. And yeah, I've been a member of programming primarily since I joined the team. Like I remember coming in and basically annoying the existing programmers enough that they ended up having to teach me because I just wouldn't stop like standing by them and asking questions. But yeah, I did programming for all the 3 years, leading up to me becoming the programming lead this last season. Just yeah, take a look at my notes since I can just random vote for a while. I also, as mentioned, do a lot of PR. So I've attended many of the variety of events and really gotten a full range of experience. And like altogether, everything leads to just a lot of growth and a lot of new opportunities. And just like, for instance, I'm going to just start with programming. The obvious skill with programming is you learn how to program. There is a few aspects of how we program. We program for the robots, like you can see kind of in the background the posters of some of the robots. You program the website, which some of you may have gotten the information through that website, as well as through apps that we use at different competitions. And all of them are in depth and give a lot of experience and valuable skills, and definitely a lot of fun moments. Like I remember helping out with the scouting app, and like not just working with them and just listening to them frustrated on how to connect the phones to the computer database, and getting frustrated when it took 5 hours to figure out how to actually get the data to transfer to the computer. But my main experience has been with the robot, and with the robot, you get a lot of unique experiences because of the fact that anything can happen. And that is one of the biggest skills that ATA has taught me, is how to react to when something's not going right, and especially how to fail. And that's a tough thing that you wouldn't expect to like get out of anything, is how to fail. But when you're going to competitions and doing it, and especially when you're preparing for competitions, you need to be ready for anything to happen. And it is a really useful skill to be able to know when something's going wrong, how to deal with something going wrong, and how to give a good laugh afterwards. Because sometimes something goes wrong, something breaks, and you can get frustrated, but also you can have a funny story to tell afterwards. For instance, I have a video right here where I'll show. So this happened in 2018, and hope the audio is working for everyone.
Okay, enabling.
This is us testing.
First try.
Oh no! Oh! Navex!
Okay.
Screaming Navex!
All right.
Navex!
That was an instance of us. Well, a bit of context. We have an opportunity. We have 15 seconds at the beginning of our matches where the robot does pre-programmed commands, and this was us testing our our routine. And this was a case of something breaking and basically crashed right through a wall. And you can tell that we were both terrified for the state of the robot, less so about the wall, even though the wall turned out to be the real thing that needed assistance, but also just having a good chuckle after something going wrong, since and it's beyond just programming, but all like mechanical. Like, to ask anyone on the team and they'll be certain to tell you stories about something going not as well as they planned. And it's important skill that you learn from, especially from robotics, is how do you fail and how do you keep going after failure, and how do you let that moment of something going wrong, how do you let that continue to keep you going? How do you learn from the moments of failure? And yeah, so just thanks for spotlighting the video. I didn't know that was a feature. I'm just taking a look at my notes. Sorry here. Because yeah, the best case scenario is when something goes wrong and you can have a really good laugh about it. But sometimes it doesn't go as well and you have to struggle for a while. But oftentimes, even when something goes terribly wrong or just funny wrong, you have a story to tell. And I hope that if you do join us, that you'll have a good chance to make many different stories that you can hopefully tell people, because it gives you memories and gives you chances to remember and give you things to share. So yeah, that's basically all I have in my notes. I'm just going to show one last video of another something going wrong, because it is that lesson of how do you learn from something and how do you keep on going. So in this video, you can see, take a look where my mouse is. I hope my mouse is actually showing, since right down here, you'll see our robot, and just watch as it goes.
Behind the line in 3, 2, 1, power up! All right, 4 top 10 teams on the field. 32-50 gets the switch for the Red Alliance. 43-34 hits the brakes hard. Trying to take possession of the scale. Blue trying to take.
That's a situation where something goes wrong but ends up well. For instance, it not tipping over. And yeah, that's about it. And I'll hand it off back to Alexander.
Thank you so much, Cool. Failure is definitely an important part of learning, especially in robotics. It's a great lesson that you shared, and it definitely makes a lot of memorable stories. Our next panelist is Sanjay Jairam. Sanjay is an FRC student on Team 5015 SWATbots, who used to be a member of an FLL team. He works on both electrical and mechanical on the SWATbots.
Hello. Yes, so like Alex said, I'm Sanjay, and I used to be on FLL, so let me just start there. So I started FLL when I was 10 back in 2016. So at that point, my experience with robotics was just my dad teaching me how to code. And so he basically just taught me a little bit of Python, and he's like, okay, you know what? You're joining a robotics team. Here you go. And I just kind of went with it, because what else was I gonna do? And it was really fun, right? The first year I was in FLL, I was kind of useless on the team because I didn't really have the skill set and knowledge to actually be able to be useful on a team. But after that, I had learned the skills required, such as the long-term thinking skills required to actually be a useful member of basically any team, right? So, and I decided to just go with programming in the FLL team because, yeah. And in my first year, there were 2 other people doing the programming, and they just like, I won't say retired, but like they just out-aged FLL the year after, and I became the only guy doing programming, and that was extremely it was extremely good for my learning, and it also essentially gave me a lot of control over something that I essentially had to get better at thinking long term and being able to plan out things in the future. And that is the skill that I used in both FLL and FRC, and also with some other stuff outside of FIRST, right? And so in my FLL team, right, we had the best robot 4 years in a row because we scored the most points in the game. And we actually won the competition 3 years in a row. But then the last year's stuff kind of happened with the project and core values, part of FLL. And then for my last 2 years in FLL, I joined the FRC team, the SWATbots. And that was an experience. At first, I was like, okay, I should probably just focus on FLL at the start. And then I decided, you know what, it's time. I'm just going to go full FRC. And I just kind of focus a lot more on FRC. And that's this year, which I did. And it got cut short by COVID-19, which was not good. So basically, in FRC, my FLL knowledge of the long-term thinking skills that like at the start, you're like, okay, you know what? A robot should be able to do this. Here's an idea of how it should be able to do it. And like being able to see that through without needing that like instant gratification, that was extremely helpful. And when coming over to FRC, that was kind of the only reason I was remotely useful at all to the team in my first year. And it's a lot easier to jump into FRC once you've done FLL a lot. Another thing I would like to talk about is the friends I've made along the way. Now, this might be a little bit of a memed over subject, but the friends, the real goal of FIRST is two things. First, it's to give you the skills to like go on with your life and become a better person. And second, it's the friends you make along the way. I still regularly talk to the friends I made with FLL. I still regularly like get on a call with them and like just play some games together. And with FRC, there's a few friends I made here that I'm still regularly in contact with and regularly talk to, because that's just how I made friends over these years. And it was really useful for the friends made and the friends, and second, the skills of say long-term thinking. And since I'm doing mechanical and electrical in FRC, it helps me with like more like hands-on skills that I wouldn't otherwise be doing. And so yeah. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Sanjay was our last panelist, so now we're going to move into some questions. So feel free to click on the Q&A button, put in a question, and if you have a specific panelist you want to direct it to, make note of that in your question. Okay, so our first question is, do you have to apply to join, or can anyone join? And Cash Wong, the board member, is going to answer that question for us.
Thanks, Alex. So you do have to apply to join any of the teams. We do have wait lists for anybody that wants to join. So hop on over to our website, and so if your kids are interested, by all means, sort of fill out the form, and then we'll contact you, let you know what the wait list looks like. And yeah, as we get to now we have different seasons in regards to when each of the teams start. As an example, FLL and FTC start in, well, I think in 2 weeks, versus FRC, the official season starts at the beginning of January. So, but the quicker you get those forms in, better chance that you'll be on that list. Now FLL, because it is a new team, I can say that we have a few spots open right now. So if you are interested in FLL, by all means go in. It's all the same form. Just select which program you're interested in, and we'll make sure that we'll contact you whether you're on the wait list or whether you're accepted. Back to you, Alex.
Thanks, Cash. So there's another question. A couple people are asking, what age do you have to be to join? So Cash, if you could just talk about the different age ranges for the different parts of FIRST.
For sure. So so I'll start with FLL. I think they've actually changed the name this year to FLL Challenge, which is the team that we're going to be having. So FLL starts at the age of 8, and you can go all the way up to the age of 14 for FLL. FRC, I think you can start as young as 11 or 12, and that can go all the way up to 18. And then FRC, if I'm not mistaken, starts somewhere around 14 and goes all the way up to 18.
Thanks, Cash. Next question is there any prerequisite or pre-knowledge you need to be on the team? And I'm going to ask this question to Connor.
Thanks, Alex. So in terms of prerequisites for the team, you can come into the team knowing absolutely nothing. We will teach you anything and everything you want to know. Obviously, coming in with previous knowledge does help. But if you want to come in and you know nothing about programming, nothing about how to build robots, nothing about electronics, we can teach you everything you need to know about that and more. I know for me, I knew a little bit of stuff about how to build robots, like just how to build things in general and use tools. But I had no idea how to do CAD, computer aided design, because for ATA, SWAT's starting to get into it, but ATA, we design all of our robots on a computer before we build them. And I had no experience, no knowledge of that before. And now it got to the point where this year I designed about 40-50% of the robot. So we can teach you anything you need to know. You don't have to know anything to join the team.
Thanks, Connor. So there's another question people are just asking, how often do you have to work on the robot? Cool, you can answer this one.
Yeah, so I think so just trying to collect my thoughts. There is no real like set limit for like how often you want to work on the robot. We have set days we come in, and it'll be a lot more strict about what times and days we come in because of COVID. But generally, it just depends on what days are open based on what the mentors for each team decide. And we would like people to have, I think, I don't remember the exact recommended number. I think it's about 10 hours a week during like preseason and 20 hours per competition season. I could be wrong about that. But honestly, you can spend as much time as you want, but there's no real limit or anything. It's just what you get out of the team depends on how much you put into it. You can spend a lot of time coming in and constantly finding stuff to work on, and you'll get a lot out. Or you can come in the bare minimum, and you get stuff out, but the more time you put in, the more time, more things you get out of it, just experience wise. But yeah, it depends on just your schedule and when you can come in. There's no exact like you must come in exactly this much, or you just whenever the space is open and you choose to come in.
Thank you, Cool. So another question that came in is, what are the kind of like the basics of how the competition works? Yeah, any of the panelists want to answer that question?
I can take it. So the competition works like this. So for FRC, you have 2 alliances of 3 teams that each alliance is working together to score more points than the opposing team. And you do this via a game that is released every year sometime in the first week of January. And these games vary a lot, and this is basically the only consistent. And for FRC, there is a 15-second autonomous period at the start in most games, and the rest of the time is spent with driver controlled. So for the first 15 seconds, the robot does stuff based on the code you give it, and the remaining time, the robot does stuff based on what the human drivers want it to do. Now, for FTC is very similar to FRC, except instead of being 3 versus 3, it's 2 versus 2, and the size of the field is a lot smaller. And for FLL, it's very different because instead of it being a more versus type of system, it's you just go on the board and you score as many points as you can with the missions that are there. And FLL is fully autonomous, so the drivers cannot control the robot at all. However, the drivers can switch out the stuff on the robot in a certain part of the board. So FLL is fully robot does whatever the robot does stuff without human control. FTC and FRC are both, it starts with a little bit of robots doing stuff based on code, but the rest of it is driver controlled. And FLL Junior, which has been renamed to something, I forget what it's renamed to. FLL Junior is like a project presentation. So basically, it's the kids come up with solutions to real world problems and put it up as like a project. And this is, and FLL Junior doesn't really have a robot games competition, but it's more of a like, we solve problems in this way, and here are some new innovative ideas to solve problems in the real world.
Thanks, Sanjay. Our next question is what happens to the old robots from previous competitions? If one of the alumni can answer that question, that'd be great.
Yes, so old robots. So every year, what we do is we actually build 2 robots every year. So we build a competition robot and a practice robot. So at the end of every season, we typically take apart the practice robot, and so we can keep those parts and reuse them. And we keep the competition robot. So we have, for ATA at least, we have most of our robots from previous seasons. The only ones we don't have are 2012, 2013, and 2015. The first 2, those were our early years. So that was, we built one robot and then we took it apart and used the parts for the next year. 2015, I think we just didn't like that robot, so we took it apart. But everything else we have, and most of them are functioning or very close to being able to function. So we have our 2014 robot. That one I believe is fully functioning. Our 2016 robot has a few things that need to get fixed, but otherwise it's mostly functioning. Our 2017 bot just needs some repairs, but it's mostly functioning. And then our 2018 and 2019 robots are fully functioning, bar a few things that were taken this year, but they get put back eventually when we get the time to. So yeah, our old robots, we try and keep them around as much as possible. Just they're nice things to have around to show off what we did, especially since we can't really reuse a lot of the parts from them. And with new electronics coming out every once in a while, leaving the old electronics and old robots tends to be okay. Last time that happened was 2016, was when was the last year of the previous electronic system, and in 2022 we're switching again to a new electronic system. So that'll be another thing where all the electronics that are in the robots from this era will just stay in them because we have no use for them outside of that.
Thanks, Connor. Our next question is, how much does it cost to build a robot? Directed to any panelist.
I would answer it, but I don't know the cost.
I can,
Connor or Cash can.
yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. Just knowing sort of how much we spend versus in talking to some of the other teams as well. Really, when it comes to at least in Canada, I think the lowest I've ever seen is probably about $4 or $5 grand, and those are usually very entry level robots. The robots that we're building by the time we're done, it's probably, you know, in the value of somewhere between 50 to 25,000 for the robots. And if you're talking about robots from the States, those guys get incredible funding, and they are some of them are almost works of art. So it can be very high. So that's why we say that, you know, it is a very expensive sport, and so that's why we have this organization together, so that you know, as a group, we can help do all the fundraising and the sponsoring to make sure that the kids can just focus on the robots, the mechanicals, and the programming and electrical, and, you know, really enjoy their time there. And then, like I said, behind the scenes, we help with all of that work and raising that money.
Actually, I'd like to add a couple of things to that. So in terms of robot costs, up until this year, there was previously a $5,000 cost limit on the robots, like a realistic spending. So anything that we buy that costs more than $5, but they've actually removed that for the next season. So even with that $5,000 cost limit, with all the parts that cost less than $5, or with anything that's donated, the actual part value of the robot's probably close to 10,000 a piece, and then plus anything we have done by sponsors. So we have sponsors that laser cut and water jet parts for us that are more complex that we can't make by hand. So yeah, but after we take into account all those costs, it does come around about $20,000, depending on how complex the robot is. I think we did a cost analysis of what it would cost to build our 2018 robot if we paid for everything, and I think that one, with how much custom parts we had on it, that one came out to around 35,000 Canadian, and that's not including labor costs if the team was being paid. So it is a very expensive, I guess, hobby, as Cash mentioned. So it's, but with how many team members we have and how many sponsors we have, it does become very affordable for students in terms of our team fees. I don't know if anybody's asked that yet, but I might as well answer that now. So for the team, it does cost for any program, every student pays a $750 annual fee. So that goes towards running the team, renting our space, and all those things. And that actually makes up a fair portion of our budget. But one thing we use for comparison is if you look at, say, a state summer camp, those typically last about 2 weeks, and you're paying upwards of $750, whereas this is $750 for 365 days a year of robotics. So it is quite a good deal on that, especially with all the training you get. If you're doing as much as you can, and you're getting into mechanical, and you're getting into programming and design, a lot of those things that you learn from that are things that you would potentially have to learn in a course that you would pay for, whether it be post-secondary or separate, and you can get quite a bit of experience from the program before even entering the workforce.
Thanks, Connor. Our next question is to the alumni, and it's, what will you miss most now that you're graduating?
Well, I guess I can take that first, since both me and Connor can answer it. So what I would say I'm missing the most is, it's the experience, just the time of just hanging out with a lot of close buds and friends, a close team, and just working on stuff together and having a lot of hijinks and just getting close to them. Like, it is something that will continue, of course, since I'm hoping to stick around in some capacity. But main thing I'm gonna miss as my time on the team is just all the hilarity that can ensue. Like, for instance, a story about one of our moderators who's here, when he was late to his own meeting, and we all just pinged him for 3 months afterwards. We kept pinging him for like 3-4 months, just as a joke. But like, it's just the fun moments that I'm gonna miss the most.
Yeah, so similar to Cool, there's a lot of fun to be had as a student. We take things professionally, but we also have a lot of time to have fun and mess around. And that is definitely something that's going to be missed. I am sticking around as an alumni tech specialist, but in that role, I'm not just working with the team. I'm working with our other teams like FTC and FLL, and doing other projects for the board on the side, making sure the space is maintained and everything. So there's going to be a lot of fun that's missed out on, but still getting to hang around the team, even as a mentor or an alumni tech specialist. There is still a lot of fun to be had, and really funny stuff happens all the time. There's constantly something, like every day there's something that happens that gets everybody laughing, whether it's someone missing something and just being completely blind, or making a mistake that was silly, or the robot doing something wacky or something breaking. There's always something that makes every single day fun. Even when we're stressed out about not having enough time, things not going well, we always find something to laugh about. And yeah, so every day it's always a great experience working with the team, and I'm gonna miss that a lot. And I guess kind of the time crunch of designing and building that robot, not being as involved with that, is gonna be a bit sad, because that is part of the fun, is the adrenaline, that kind of rush of a holy crap, we have not much time to do this, and time is shrinking very, very fast. It's amazing how fast a couple months can go by when you're really focused on that, but also when you're having so much fun, it just flies right by. And the past 3 years have felt like, maybe a year total. It's just gone by so fast, and it's been so fun. So that's going to be definitely something I'm going to miss.
Thank you. Our next question is directed to all the panelists, but mostly to the alumni. It's, what experience has influenced you most on your decisions past high school?
So decision past high school, I think for me, I was already interested in engineering, but doing robotics like really solidified that, especially since we have mentors that are engineers, and we have a mentor that just finished his mechanical engineering degree and came back to the team as a mentor. And talking to him about that, it just, you get a lot of exposure to what it's like in post-secondary with engineering, but you also get exposure with some of the mentors we already have, who are already engineers and have been for a while, as to what it's like, being an engineer, what they have with their jobs. And sometimes it's, they have a desk job, but a lot of them do have jobs where they're actually really involved with stuff. And even if you don't get an engineering degree, there's tons and tons of things you can get into that are related to robotics, whether it's mechatronics or computer engineering. There's so much you can do and so many opportunities that I think if anybody comes through the team, from what I've seen, even if they aren't considering engineering when they join, by the time they're leaving, they're thinking about it at least a little bit, because they see how much cool stuff there is.
Thanks, Connor. Our next question is directed to Studi, Nathan, and Sanjay, and it's, how different was your expectations of FRC versus the realities?
All right, I guess I'll go first. So as I mentioned before, FRC in my mind was like a bunch of people getting together. They're always working on the robot. They're always like coding. They're always problem solving. It would just be like a lot of like really intense working. That's what I imagine it to be. And as cool as that was, it was really different. It was more of a community of people, now that I think of it. Like, it was like being on any other sports team, except it's not sports. We would all just hang out, there'd be a fridge in the workspace. You would find us in the kitchen talking about the randomest things. We'd be working on the robot and getting into like small arguments and like discussing things. There's so many great stories that we made. So like the community aspect of it really surprised me a lot more than I was expecting.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Sorry. Yeah, so coming into robotics, I also thought that it was going to be like a super work heavy environment with everybody just constantly brainstorming on the robot, working on everything left and right. But once I actually came in, it was a very fun experience. And I think that inside of the robotics team, there's a very good balance of when we're working and when we can just have fun and talk to each other. as both friends and teammates. So I think that it's a really good experience, and it was pleasantly different from what I thought it was going to be coming in as like the much harder, much higher level robotics playing field than say FLL, where we had a lot of time to just talk as friends and stuff like that. And I'm glad that there's a lot of room for that in FRC too.
And I might be going at the end of this question. And basically, I'm going to start with going into FLL and then talk about going to FRC. Going into FLL, it was basically like, okay, so we're building a robot now. How do I do that, right? And it was, at first I was like, okay, you know what? It's building a robot. We have 6 months. We'll probably spend the time doing work consistently, and like everybody will have an equal say in it. And that's not how the team ran at all. It was basically with FLL, like Nathan said, there's time to actually like talk as friends with your team. And at least with my team, I don't know much about Nathan's. We spent a lot of time in FLL just talking as friends. And at the start, I was like, okay, you know what? We're going to spend the entire like 2-hour block we had once a week with FLL to just work on a robot. And that's just not what happened. It turned into more of just like a talk with your friends, have a good time, build a robot while you're there. And now when you're going into FLC, I thought, okay, you know what? This will be like the full robot work time that I thought of FLL when it starts. I thought, okay, you know what? Instead of 6 months, we have 6 weeks. And the robot is a lot more complicated. So I thought, you know what? Okay, this is the full robot work time that I thought FLL was. It wasn't. It was a lot more work, FRC, but there was still the time for just talking with people as your friends. And that was really nice. And instead of just being a 6-week like crunch time, it turned into like a 6-week, okay, so we want to do this. And then you work on it while also talking with your friends. And it's very nice.
Okay, thank you, Sudhi, Nathan, and Sanjay. The next question is about the fees. I'm going to direct this to Cash, and they were just wondering, are the fees annual fees or a one-time fee?
The fees are an annual fee. So actually all the fees basically go toward our competition costs. So we have for each competition, and generally in Canada, we go to two. We go to the competition in Victoria, and then we've got a competition in Calgary as well. And so for each team, that fee is about $5,000 that we have to pay per team. So most of the fees that you guys pay to join the team every year, or the annual fees, generally goes toward that. And then all of the parts and building, again, that's where all of our sponsorship money comes in from.
Thanks, Cash. So it's 3 o'clock now. So we're gonna wrap up this AMA now. If you have any more questions, feel free to go to our website or email us and send us those questions, and we'll answer them for you. Just want to thank all of our panelists, Matthew and Isaiah, for helping us run the webinar and our live streams in the background, the board members for supporting us, and most especially all of the participants for coming out to learn more about FIRST and our teams. I hope our webinar answered all of your questions about FIRST and ATAA and conveyed what a fun and unique opportunity it has been for us to be part of this community. And I think for all of us, it has been really important and rewarding, a really important and rewarding part of our high school lives. We love ATA and we love to answer questions about robotics. So if you think of any more questions or want to learn more, feel free to email us at info@ataarobotics.ca or check out our websites. Also, if you could just fill out the survey, I think you'll be prompted to fill out a survey at the end of the webinar. And we'd really appreciate it if you could fill that out, and so that we can find out how to improve. And thank you again, and have a great weekend.